Good morning, students. Welcome once again to Methods of Teaching Biology. In this lesson, we are going to learn about the effect of teaching and learning materials on teaching biology. Now, after you have studied this session, you will be able to outline the effect of teaching and learning materials on teaching. Explain the effect of teaching and learning materials on teaching a biology lesson. And then discuss the criteria for selecting teaching and learning materials for teaching. We first look at the effect of teaching and learning materials on teaching. Now, teaching and learning materials as we use as teachers to teach has effect on our teaching. So the first thing is it reduces verbalism. When I say verbalism, it means the rate at which you talk reduces, because when you use a teaching and learning material and you project something, when students see what you've projected, they would reason from what you've projected, and then you wouldn't need to talk too much. So TLM minimizes the teacher's use of words in teaching. You don't talk too much whilst you teach. The second point is the TLMs enable students increase retention of what has been taught. When students see what you've projected, they are able to retain what you've projected, or they're able to remember what happened in the previous lesson. So most often we advise you use teaching and learning materials whilst you teach. The next point is using TLM in a classroom or in a lesson motivates students to learn. Now, for example, in teaching protein synthesis, it is so abstract that the use of TLM makes the students understand the concept better. Since the TLMs are usually made from bees to show chromosomes and genes on the chromosomes, the students get excited and motivated to learn it. So it is always advisable to use TLMs in your teaching. Now, point number 4. The use of TLMs provide continuity of thought on the part of the students. For example, evolution of man from molecule or cell to complexity of man using pictures to show the stages of evolution. This one makes students have continuous flow of thought for easier understanding. So as I've given you an example, it is telling you that as student teachers, whenever we want to teach, we have to prepare our teaching and learning materials, because the effect it is having on students is very good. Now, you look at the criteria for selecting a teaching and learning material. Producing a teaching and learning material and taking it into the classroom is one thing, and also using it effectively is another thing. So it is important to select teaching and learning materials carefully. So here we will get to know the criteria that will guide you, the teacher, so that you can select a teaching and learning material. The first one is suitability. How suitable is the material you are going to select? Suitability. So I'm saying that the teaching and learning material must be suitable for the intended purpose. The purpose in which you are going to use the teaching and learning material, it must be suitable for it. So you have to check the age and capability of the teaching and learning material. So the age and capability ought to help you determine the suitability. Now with this one, I'm trying to say that the age of the students you are going to teach, and then you have to check about the teaching and learning material you're going to use that particular age group. You're going to use to teach that particular age group. So you have to check those things. The next one is appropriateness. Now with appropriateness, we are saying that the teaching and learning material must be appropriate for intended learners, the learners in which you intend to teach, it must be appropriate for them. So what I'm trying to say is that it must be related to the students' prior knowledge and their intellectual capabilities. Okay, the next one I want to talk about is the TLMS must be previewed, reviewed, or examined before the teacher brings it to class. So as a teacher, you have to go through these things. You must preview the TLM, review it, and then you examine it before you send it to classroom. Why do we do this? You do this to ensure that the material is working well and is in good condition so that it can be used to what is extended to teach, so that it can be used for what is extended to teach. But sometimes a teacher may send an equipment to be used in class, and without trying it, it can cause a problem in your teaching process. But at the time it is needed to be used, the teacher finds that it is not working. And sometimes it becomes embarrassing. As a teacher, it means you are not prepared. Okay, the next point is attractiveness. If it is a drawing color, it must be used to add beauty to it. The colors used must depict real state of what is being shown. So when a drawing or a diagram or chart is attractive, students will draw near to look at it and then learn from it. So I'm trying to say that the drawing must have neatly drawn borders with appropriate heading. The heading must be exactly what the drawing is depicting. For example, transverse section of a young dicotyledonous plant will be appropriate more than which just saw, or let's say when you draw a transverse section of a young dicotyledonous plant, it should be more appropriate than just say what do you call it, a transverse section of a plant. Like, it should be more appropriate so that it will be attractive to the students. The next one is portability. How portable is the teaching and learning materials? Now, the TLMS must be easier to handle and to be carried from one point to another. So if the TLMS is clumsy and not easy to handle, it's like if you're not able to handle, or like if the TLMS is difficult to handle, using it in the classroom becomes cumbersome. So you, the teacher, you have to arrange and then send the students out to where the TLMS is located. Sometimes some of the TLMS, you can't bring it to the classroom. So you send students around to see, to observe what you want them to understand. The next point is accuracy and representativeness. Now, we are saying that it must show the central features of the real thing. In this sense, we are saying that the TLMS must be accurate and good representative of what is meant for, especially if it is a drawing or an improvised material. It must show the central features of the real thing. The next one is affordability. So the cost of the TLM, or if the instrument, or if it is an instrument, it must be low and not too expensive so that it can be bought. So if it is going to be produced by the teacher locally, we can use some cheap materials which is within the locality to produce the TLM. But you have to know that not all expensive or cheap materials are suitable for a lesson. So the teacher must strike the balance and then buy what will serve the intended purpose. Okay, the next point is time and duration for use. Now with this point, I'm saying that if the material to be used can be fixed easily during the class, it should be fixed before the class. So with this one, we are saying that if it is a film or a video clip you, the teacher, you want to show to the students, you have to check on the time and duration for show. And this one should be within the available time for your teaching. If not, then the teacher, you must arrange with the next teacher who comes to the class to use part of that teacher's time to show that particular video. And it is important to ensure that the physical environment is conducive for the use of the TLM. For example, if a video clip to be screened, ensure that the room is dark. If it's poor sound or in a noisy environment, hearing will be interfered with so much disturbances. So with this one, you have to move to a quiet place or you control the noise. Now, we've learned a lot in this session. We've learned about teaching and learning materials, the effect of teaching and learning materials, and then the criteria for selecting teaching and learning materials in a biology lesson. So in reviewing what we've learned so far, I ask you students these questions. Now, question number 1, I'm saying that explain 4 effects of teaching and learning materials on teaching. Question number 2, list 8 criteria you will use to select teaching and learning material for teaching biology. Question number 3, discuss 4 of the criteria listed in question 2 above. So I believe when you find answers or when you find appropriate answers to these questions, I believe you would understand the whole lesson. And most often I tell students to discuss the review questions in groups. We can discuss on any available e-learning platform, either on Zoom or Google Meet.